I liked when we ended the scene, and I was like, I was thinking back, okay, what do I want to do next? And I played up a story in my head how I wanted it to go, but then I was like, wait, what if it doesn't go that? What would happen then? And I was like,
I will take a quick break as well
Okay,
while
sure.
we.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I also like about the game is that it's a very good example of being absolutely unable to control the story. You cannot, not one person at the table has the ability to always dial it back to the direction they want to go. The game is built to say, listen, let go of your need to control the story. Just let go of it. You don't know how things will turn out for characters. The person who narrates actually has a lot of input into certain things, and there's no way to know what that's going to be. And you may want to have a certain thing happen, but if somebody begins a scene before you, maybe you can't start a scene, it's been too soon, someone else will start a scene, and that completely obliterates the chance for the scene you had in your mind. That's just, that whole possibility of fiction is just gone. And
I think
that's
that's
the good
quite
thing.
nice.
Oh yeah, it's a good thing.
I think it's liberating
Yeah.
not to.
You have to live in the moment. When it comes to you,
Yeah, not to plan
Right.
too much.
Yeah.
I think what I liked very much is that you could take hints from others, both verbal input, but all even how they react to your character,
Right.
how they react to
Right.
what she's doing or not doing, up to the point where you framed scenes where I couldn't have said they are not going to get together.
Right. Right.
And that was great fun.
Yeah.
I mean, normally, also as far as I have experienced,
Mm-hmm.
Usually you just have your own. You have your own counsel to go to when you
Right. When you say,
when
what does my
you're
character
developing
do?
your
Right.
character, when you're
Right.
developing the story, the
Yes.
things they will do or not do. And this was much about taking up hints and trying to make a story out of it. I also like to think of what's different if this would be a TV show, which makes the character a lot more
Borrowing
prestige. And
yeah.
just for my own fun, I did that for my own fun, which
Yeah, you
made it
mentioned
possible to
I wanted
change
to,
the
yeah.
character in quite exaggerated ways, which I wouldn't do otherwise. And
Right. There's something
that was
about
fun.
drawing on television as a model is really powerful in a lot of ways, because you're taking, as I didn't respond to your comment at Adept's Play because it's a big topic and I kind of wanted to wait to see how the series finished before we really dive into it. But the fascinating thing for me is that there is no such thing as a bad idiom, right? There's no such thing as a bad basis for a story, even when sometimes part of that idiom is that the characters are extremely shallow and cannot really get deeper. I mean, or it's very, very, very hard. If you have characters develop in a certain way and have outcomes of a certain kind on television, then the response of the audience is, well, that's not television. What's it doing on there? Right. And so there's, even when the same thing happens with superhero comics, that you are starting with somewhat flatter, somewhat more trope driven characterizations. And yet, for some reason, you can still have tremendous story appear. In a way, it's something of the same. It's the same benefit when they talk about this with simple animation. that simpler animation sometimes delivers very powerful, very enjoyable impacts of the story, more so perhaps than animation that is so incredibly lifelike and detailed. And that's one thing that we've been seeing in the last 10 years, is that animators have deliberately cut back. They're using computer animation, but they're making it look older. And they are finding that this has meant nothing to kids, that kids are not seeking more and more realistic, more and more detailed, more and more precise animation, that kids are actually really responding to the simpler style and really valuing it. And the first impact of this probably was with Minecraft, actually, when the simplicity of the visuals of Minecraft were extremely appealing. And so it is possible, I think, that perhaps the idiom that we are looking for is not the absolute complexity and the absolute details of life. That the ideal, the photographic ideal that the camera will literally capture reality. And there's a whole school of film theory which talks about the magic of cinema being its ability to capture reality. And I always thought that particular, I always thought that particular viewpoint was idiotic. And so,
I have a comment about that. When you study games and simulations, like as I've done game design and serious game design, that is, then that's called high fidelity.
Yes.
And that is the concept of something being more realistic. And I have heard a really good argument against that.
Yes.
And that is, for example, if high fidelity is that important, that means that a colored picture is better than a black and white. And I mean, you don't have to go really far in that reasoning to understand that it's not about that.
Right. And there have been several different people. In film, there is in the 1960s, there was a film theorist named Krakauer who made the best case for that. And even though I disagree with him, there are certain things he says that I cannot deny are true. So the argument in film continues to rage with its philosophers and experts and directors. But in comics, a writer or an artist named Scott McCloud, who wrote books about comics as well, he was talking about how it's easier to empathize with an almost blank face with just two eyes and a smile. It's easier to empathize with a simpler face than with a complex face. And so he focused a lot on that. Well, anyway, this all came for Sandra and Ola. This came from Helma's observation that it was surprising to get a character you could develop and a plot that you could develop when you are working from very basic, almost flat, television appropriate characters. And at first you would think that kind of flatness is a limitation of television, even a mediocre aspect of television. And that sometimes you can see it turn into something else. We don't have to worry in this game about satisfying ratings. We don't have to worry about satisfying employers. We don't have to worry about any of those things. We don't have to worry about keeping our jobs. We can make it the way we think it should be, not the way that all those things make it have to be. What's that, Mark? Or Max? See? Now I'm doomed. I'm doomed.
I don't know.
For God's sake. Yeah.
Sam, Nia, Gerard. I think the only thing I focused on was trying to have the character be himself, and what was reasonable to him. And often it's make it simple as that. Like, okay, what he would do? Well, he wants to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll go get the truth. How does he get the truth? Well, he'll look through the papers. Then a Rod comes and tells something. Well, he wants to help. He wants to help and wants to find the truth. So there is this place. So I always try to get through with that. Okay, what is his next step? Now he failed with Gregory.
Well, that's
that was
very true, although we also got to see the human side of Mark when caring about other people became important. And so I thought that was an exciting aspect of it. So anyway, what are other thoughts? Ole, you came loaded with who God knows what argumentative points you wanted to make. So
I know that. I first of all, I realized, because this is maybe the third time I played Prime Time, I realized how influenced I've been. That was one of my key takeaways. I almost blush when I look at the games that I'm making now
and say, "Oh no, I'm just making PTA again." Yeah,
yeah, I'm making a more complex version of PTA. But there's some things that I think is. I mean, there's a lot. There's just enough on the character sheet for you to, as you said before. But I'm more interested in talking about because we had in the first 2-3 episodes, there was a kind of if I was an audience, I would have said, okay, is this going to be some kind of conspiracy space story, or is it going to be a kind of low-key social realistic about complex living in the lower decks? And how much of that did you, Ron? Did you have any opinion? And
I actually felt like I had a responsibility.
Yeah.
Because remember, as the role of the producer in Primetime Adventures is much more Game Master-like than most people realize. Because certain Game Master things are taken away from the producer, people think all of them are taken away from the producer. That's not true. One really important Game Master thing remains with the producer, and that is the backstory content.
Yeah.
Anything, I have content for all those things. If somebody finds out secret information, I say what the secret information is. If you are trying to find out why somebody is doing what they're doing, I say why that person is doing what they're doing. Even if you win narration in the conflict, you can't make that stuff up. You are just allowed to ask me. So it's just like the Game Master with the dungeon behind the screen. That information is immutable. And so it's not accessible. Just because a player character looks for a secret door doesn't mean that a secret door appears. I will tell you if there is a secret door. So that is exactly the same. So I actually had to sit down after our pilot and decide for myself what was true, what wasn't. Who were these people? And some of them developed more as we went along. Some of them did not exist until later, right? I'm particularly proud of Laura. But the important point to make is that I will tease Sandra as long as I can remember to do it for insisting in the beginning in her deconstructive way that she liked television where nothing happened. And then, as soon as her character's feet touched the ground, went on this lurking spy mission to go around not only to make things happen, but to find out what was happening. Both of them.
Yeah.
And so there I was, having been suckered into our nice naturalistic domestic workplace minor drama, and I was suckered into this world of science fiction conspiracy. And so so as you can see, at the end of the pilot, I had a decision to make. And I decided that I would feed Sandra's words back to her. And that no matter what happened, I could always say, but nothing happened.
Send me spinning, because I was as naive as my character to believe her when she said she wanted this.
I had the responsibility to decide as the producer, and I decided that I would listen to what the player said, even if the player wasn't listening to what she said.
Yeah.
So that's what I decided to do. I decided to represent Sandra number one. I decided to be your representative. So that was my logic. Does that make sense, Ola?
Yes, absolutely. And I kind of felt that it was that way, but I didn't felt. I mean, you can, as a game master or a producer, you can influence the direction,
right?
Or
but you can't tell the story. Yeah, you can't.
No.
Yeah.
So that kind of, so I had to ask that question because I felt that you were responsible somewhat, but I totally got along with it because and the other thing that, I mean, what kind of this last episode was, it was started earlier, but it kind of developed into a kind of a theme for the whole story.
Oh, I think the story ended up with a rather powerful theme, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have not really. I kind of have Gerard's theme, but the story theme is something else, and that like the story was about, and then trying to find a really simple explanation to what was the story about. What was the theme of the story?